Hello everyone, it's Fred again from Notes of a Nomad, video number 220. Today I want to talk about mental health. It's been coming up in the past week. I had a couple examples that I want to share with you. And next month, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And boy, have I become aware of it this past week. I went to a museum for a mental health hospital museum. Also, I had three people at the recent meeting at AGRA speak about items that really resonated with me about mental health. The first speaker spoke about how social media is impacting mental health of young people. Some of them even commit suicide because of social media. Big challenge. We hear about it more and more all the time. The second person, who was in Nepal, spoke about her experience about mental health. People don't speak about it, they suppress it. And she lost a good friend to suicide, and we must talk about it and educate each other about mental health. Wonderful talk. And the third person gave a speech about if you give to others, you gain. So giving others and volunteer. So I want to put all those three together, plus visiting the museum, and just share with you some thoughts about mental health and perhaps how we can do something about it as a society and in our own cultures. So let me share my screen a little bit. I'll show you the pictures from a couple pictures from the museum. This is the Patton uh, State Hospital here in San Bernardino, California, where my daughter and her students have helped set up this museum back in April 2020, 2015 when it was open. And as you can see, it was established to honor those men and women who have lived, worked, and received treatment at this institution, and to reflect the significant role it's played in the advancement of psychiatric treatment in California. Throughout this museum, we endeavor to honor the past, live in the present, and look to the future. So this is a picture of the museum, what the building looks like. And one of the pictures is of the buildings from the early 1890s when it was first built. It started in 1890, 1893 it was open. Those buildings no longer exist due to an earthquake, I think it was in 1923, but it's still this very large property with, I believe, about 1,400 residents, people who are being treated, and 2,400 people who work there. So it's a very large, probably the largest institution of its type in California, and probably one of the largest in in the United States. So there's a picture of the old buildings. And also, this was a picture of the wall. And this gentleman here is Anthony Ortega, who works at the hospital, but is the person who found a lot of the artifacts that are in this particular museum. And if you see at the top corner here, where I'm highlighting, says 1890, and it goes along all the way up to the year 2015 on the wall with a lot of the documents and so on. And Anthony is pointing out some of the facts as he was guiding some of us who were visiting it. Now, this gentleman is someone who was mentioned by uh, Tapasha, the young lady who gave the speech just yesterday about mental health. And she indicated that she was impacted when her friend committed suicide, and the fact that people in Nepal, where she's from, don't speak about it. We don't talk about it. We suppress it. But it's not helping anyone by suppressing it. And this gentleman, Vikram Patel, is from India, and he has had a big impact and gave a TED talk, I believe, in 2012. And I'll put a link to that particular talk in the description below this video. And Vikram has done an enormous amount of work around the world for mental health. He has been chosen as one of the most 100 influential people in the world by Time magazine. And if you look him up, you'll see a lot of the awards and what he's doing around the world. Now, when he was trained originally in India, he ended up working in Africa, in Zimbabwe, and he noticed that there's hardly any mental health workers in Zimbabwe where he was. And for millions of people, there was like a handful of people who were trying to help them. And he also noticed, particularly in India, where he's from, it was also very, very bad. There's not enough people. So what he started was a volunteer organization called Sangrath. And Sangrath is training people, volunteers, not medical trainees, but volunteers in the community, train them on how to help people with mental health. And it has a major impact. He's been doing this, in the past decade. And there's a lot of statistics about what volunteers have been able to do to help people around the world with mental health because they are trained. And if you look up Sangrath, Sangath, you will see some of the facilities and what they're doing, particularly in India, but around the world. And if you look up Vikram Patel, you'll see some of the things that he's been doing. And he's been put in very senior jobs around the world now because his work has been recognized, including, I believe it's Harvard University in their medical site, some of the initiatives they're having. He's now in charge of that. So this brings to mind something. This is a picture of Sangrath, Sangath, where they've been transferring mental health and having people, such as this picture, people learning and discussing about mental health. So that's what I learned in the past week about mental health, that we and volunteers can have an impact because I know from my experience of volunteering in British Columbia, helping people who have to evacuate, one of the things I've had training in is psychosocial to assist people because they're, been traumatized because they're not allowed to get into the house because of forest fires or floods or whatever it is. And that's another aspect of training that you can train people. And I've done a little bit of psychosocial training on how to help people cope with the trauma they're faced. And this means that we don't have to rely on the government because we don't have enough people in mental health, and yet it's rampant. And so that comes to mind. So this past week, with listening to those three speeches and visiting the hospital, Patton State Hospital here in San Bernardino, California, just makes you think this is something we should talk about. Tapasha, the young lady from Nepal who gave the speech, she's right. We got to talk about it. And what um, Vikram Patel is doing is amazing. So let's not just rely on the government. A lot of people are able to do things and get training and help people with mental health challenges. So with that, I'll say adios, au revoir, wishing you, your family, and your friends lots of love and laughter and good mental health. Bye for now from Fred and Notes of a Nomad.